Thank you all for joining us today for the latest Buffalo-Niagara Partnership Webisode, COVID-19, federal stimulus details, and the business impact. There are 500 of you on today's call. I am Dottie Gallagher, President and CEO of the Buffalo-Niagara Partnership. The partnership is committed to providing employers with the latest information and resources to help you deal with COVID-19 and its impact on our community, the state, and the nation. And you can always visit our resource page, which is on our website, and you can get there from the homepage, which is www.thepartnership.org. It's being regularly updated to provide you with the most up-to-date information. I want to thank Timothy Manny from the U.S. Chamber for being with us today as our special guest. Tim is the U.S. Chamber's Executive Director of Congressional and Public Affairs. A veteran of Capitol Hill, Tim joined the Chamber in 2000. The U.S. Chamber has been the tip of the spear in making sure the needs of employers and taxpayers were front and center as the President and Congress negotiated the $2 trillion stimulus package. I want to thank Tim and his colleagues for their leadership. Today's webisode will last 45 minutes. When Tim is done breaking down the stimulus package for us, we will open it up to questions using the Q&A function of Zoom. Please do not use the chat function if you wish to ask a question. We won't be able to get to it. Use the Q&A function. The audio of today's webisode will be shared with participants in the near future, along with some additional information from the U.S. Chamber outlining the details of the stimulus package. So now I just want to welcome Tim virtually to Buffalo and turn the program over to you. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Dottie. On behalf of my colleague Nick Vaughn and myself, thank you all for joining today. And thank you all for all you do for your employees, members, and communities. We are all still reeling from the President's announcement that we should expect another month of disruption. Everyday life has become harder to keep kids engaged with schoolwork from home. And for many families, the uncertainty of a regular paycheck and the ability to put food on the table. As you know, the President signed the CARES Act on Friday, March 27th. We expect the Small Business Administration, Treasury, Health and Human Services, and other federal agencies to provide definitive guidance on how they plan to process applications for assistance and timelines for payments as soon as the end of this week. Direct deposits payments to taxpayers could occur in a few weeks. This legislation also includes $340 billion in additional discretionary spending, of which 80% is earmarked for state and local governments and communities. Although Congress has passed 3 separate stimulus packages to counter the negative economic impacts of shutting down a large portion of the economy due to the coronavirus, many leaders are suggesting that they plan to begin work on a 4th and 5th coronavirus-related aid package. The House seems likely to take the lead on drafting the next legislative package. Some ideas that have been mentioned are individual payroll tax relief, clean energy tax breaks, expanded infrastructure projects, more crude oil purchases, further social safety net enhancements, more industry-specific aid, and risk corridors. High on the Democrat leadership's wish list are clarity on who qualifies for family and medical leave, protections further for healthcare workers, increasing food stamp payments by 15%, more money going out to state and local governments, free coronavirus testing, doctor's visits and follow-up treatments, and equitable funding for residents of Washington, D.C. The Chamber acknowledges that no two businesses are alike and no one-size-fits-all government approach will work during this pandemic. We are committed to assisting small businesses and our association members navigate this new law so that they can get the best benefit to ensure they can keep their doors open and workers prepared for what is next. At this time, I'd like to walk through the slides that we have prepared to talk about the Federal CARES Act and its major provisions, implementation, and resources. This recently passed package was a $2 trillion package. Through enhancements to the Federal Reserve, the potential is for an additional $4 trillion in support for the overall economy. It is referred to as the Phase 3 stimulus bill. On the individual side, automatic payments to individual taxpayers should go out in the next few weeks via direct deposit for those that have that information with the IRS and checks to those that don't. $1,200 per individual, $2,400 if you file a joint return, plus $500 per child. This is phased out for incomes above $75,000 and $150,000 jointly filed. Expanded unemployment. Most restrictions on eligibility suspended if related to COVID-19. An additional $600 per week on top of regular state benefits through July 31st. Eligibility ends when individuals can return to work. And the benefits are provided through state unemployment insurance offices, which we all know are stretched real thin right now. Next slide. Some of the major provisions for employers for the CARES Act. For all employers, there are various tax changes and the employee retention credit. For larger employers, there are loans, loan guarantees, and Federal Reserve credit facilities. I'd like to focus on small businesses, self-employed, independent contractors, and not-for-profits. The new provisions of this law are the Paycheck Protection Program, the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loans, EIDL loans, and Paid Sick and Family Medical Leave Act leave. Next slide, please. For all employers, payroll taxes, delayed payment of employer payroll taxes, Social Security between now and 1/1/21. 50% will be due on 12/31/21, and the rest will be due on 12/31/22. This does not apply to employers who have loans forgiven under the Paycheck Protection Program. Other tax changes, net operating loss for 2018, 19, and 20 can be carried back 5 years, suspend 80% limitation, extends to pass-throughs and sole proprietors as well. Accelerate recovery of AMT credits. In the election, increase the limit on interest deductibility to 50% for 2019 and 2020. Also includes qualified improvement property fix. Next slide, please. For all employers, the employee retention credit. Employers fully or partially shut down or with 50% drop in gross receipts in a quarter compared to the prior year until return to 80%. Refundable tax credit for 50% of the wages, including employers' health plan expenses paid by the employer up to $10,000 per employee. Employers with more than 100 employees applies to employees not providing services. Employers with 100 or less employees applies to all employees paid during the eligible period. Employers are not eligible if they receive a Paycheck Protection loan. Allows for advance payment of the credit. Next slide, please. Mid-size and larger employers. Loans guarantees, Federal Reserve credit facility. The law includes $454 billion to the Treasury Department for loans, loan guarantees, or to support Federal Reserve credit facilities. Special programs for airline industry and critical national security businesses. There are included restrictions on stock buybacks and for executive compensation. We're likely to see a new program through the Federal Reserve that will support lending by financial institutions to businesses. Next slide, please. Small businesses, self-employed, independent contractors, and not-for-profits. This is geared toward your small businesses. The Paycheck Protection Program. $349 billion in loans for small businesses, generally less than 500 employees, 501c3s, self-employed, sole proprietors, and independent contractors. Loans equal to the lesser of a 2.5-month average payroll or 10 million. Loans by local and national lenders. Just to add here, Many folks, if they're already using a local lender for SBA services, these are the lenders you need to go to now. Minimal requirements: no collateral, no personal guarantee. The loans convert to grants equal to the amount spent on payroll, rent, interest on mortgage, and utilities for the 8 weeks after origination. Loan forgiveness is reduced proportionally if the employer reduces the number of full-time employees. Loan forgiveness is reduced if the employer reduces wages by more than 25%. Employers can avoid reduction in forgiveness if they bring back employees and restore wages generally within 30 days and maintain through June 30th. Next slide, please. You can learn more about the Paycheck Protection Program. You've downloaded our guide on uschamber.com/small business loans. There's a good resource there to kind of walk through how the program works and how to engage the SBA. Next slide, please. Small business, self-employed, independent contractors, and not-for-profits. SBA economic injury and disaster loans, EIDL loans, are for small businesses and nonprofits, including faith-based, with fewer than 500 employees, sole proprietors, independent contractors. Up to $2 million working capital loan, up to a 30-year term, 3.75%, 2.75% for not-for-profits. Payments can be deferred up to 1 year. The loans are based on credit scores, no tax returns required. Up to $200,000 without a personal guarantee. No collateral for $25,000 or less. General security interest instead of real estate for larger loans. And $10,000 emergency grant within 3 days that does not have to be repaid. So to repeat that, even if you apply for a SBA economic injury disaster loan and you go through the process and you don't take the loan, you are still eligible for the $10,000 emergency grant. So a lot of folks are doing that. Interacts with the Paycheck Protection Program, and you can apply directly through sba.gov. Next slide, please. Just backtracking a little bit, these are some clarifications for paid sick leave. Employees with less than 500 employees are required to provide 10 days of paid sick leave if leave is related to COVID-19. Sick leave can be taken when ill or quarantined due to exposure, to take care of sick or quarantined family member, or to take care of a child during a school closure. Leave is paid at a regular rate with a maximum of $511 per day if taking care of self, paid at 2/3 rate with a maximum of $200 per day if caring for a family member. Payment up to the maximum is reimbursed by the federal government. Leave is in addition to any other leave an employer already provides. Businesses with less than 50 employees may be exempt from providing leave related to caring for a child whose school or daycare is closed if providing leave threatens the viability of the business. Paid sick leave is not available if an employee can telework, which is a key distinction now. Next slide, please. Paid Family Medical Leave Act leave. Employers with less than 500 employees are required to provide up to 10 weeks of paid FMLA leave if an employee needs to take care of a child due to a school or child care closure caused by COVID-19. Leave is paid at 2/3 regular pay at a maximum of $200 per day and $10,000 in aggregate. Paid Family Medical Leave Act is in addition to any other leave an employer provides. Payments for FMLA leave will be reimbursed by the federal government up to the maximum. And businesses with less than 50 employees may be exempt from providing leave related to caring for a child whose school or daycare is closed if the providing leave threatens the viability of a business. The paid leave is not available to an employee if they can telework. Next slide. So you can get more information on uschamber.com and the small business resources at uschamber.com/co. We are on your side, working hard to make sure that the resources available under this new law are available to everyone, and we can finally get a place back where we can begin to get back to work and strengthen our economy and grow our way out of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. We've got a few questions here for you.
Okay.
So let me get to. I sort of want to ask in order, but I don't know that I can. So there's a question about what is the interest rate for the paycheck program and the EIDL loans.
EIDL loans. That is, it's all based on the SBA. All be on that SBA link.
Okay. So we're getting a few questions around the 500 number. So for example, there's a person here who has responded that they have 3 affiliated businesses that are in different geographical areas. Mm-hmm. Individually, the 3 companies are well under 500, but combined they're just over 500. So would they qualify? And the second part of that question is, when are they doing the count of under 500? Like when is the date, effective date of employee number?
I believe I've heard the effective date is, I think they said right before the announcement was made. So it would probably be the first week in March. And I think that it depends how the businesses apply. If it's aggregate over 500, but if each individual business applies separately, they may be different. But again, those are all things through the SBA that they can help navigate.
There are some folks that are asking where they can access a copy of the presentation deck. We are going to actually email it out to all of you who are registered, and we will also be posting it on the partnership website.
Absolutely.
Can you, Scott has asked, can you go over the disaster loan $10,000 option again? So you said you can apply and then decline the loan, but then keep the grant. That's accurate?
That's correct. That's correct.
That
is correct.
Okay, this is I don't know if you're if you're the right person to ask this question, but Tim, you're the only guy here, so I'm going to ask you.
Don't worry.
I just want to be clear on this. If an employee has been laid off and will be collecting SUI and the $600 relief check, will the employee's benefits cease if they are called back to work and refuse? And also, who would monitor this activity?
Yeah, that's actually something we've heard before. They were concerned that the benefits would be greater than having folks get back to work, and that's been the problem with the negotiations. I definitely will. I'll get that message to our labor and employment group to make sure we get a direct answer to that. I believe the state unemployment office is going to have a part of that, and they're going to have a tough time navigating if they don't get back to work.
You know, Tim, just to all the folks that are listening, any of these unanswered questions that are a little more technical, we will seek to get the answers and get them up on our COVID-19 page. So if we don't get to you during this,
absolutely, yeah,
these questions. All right, let's see. Can employers take advantage of both the employee retention credit and the Social Security tax credit?
Say that one more time. Which ones?
Can employers take advantage of both the employee retention, I'm assuming that's the
yes,
and the Social Security tax credit?
Yes, I think the only one that you can't double up on is the Paycheck Protection Act one.
So in regards to paycheck protection, can you go into the any detail that you might know about wage support for workers in the service industry, where a portion of the gross wages comes from tips?
Yeah.
So how does that work? Would employer increase the base pay where tips aren't possible? What would we do there?
I will have to, we'll have to ask our employment expert on that. I don't see anything about tips on here, but you know, that's something that has come up a few times. You know, it's one thing workers pay, employers paying workers, you know, the wage, but like making up lost tips, which is a huge part of many in the service industries, where they get by. I don't see that in here.
Okay. So
Tips.
in sizing the Payment Protection Act loan, when you calculate the 2.5 times average monthly payroll,
Mm-hmm.
are there any costs that you can include besides payroll, for example, mortgage, principal, and interest payments, utility costs, et cetera?
Well, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Rent, interest on mortgage, and utilities for 8 weeks after the origination.
Okay. Excellent. I think you may have answered this already, but I'm not sure. It says, will the $600 additional UI benefit apply up to the amount the employee would normally make weekly, or does it go over their normal weekly wage? This is a lot of, we keep seeing this question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confusion on this, Tim.
Well, this is a state benefit, and this has got to go through the state unemployment office.
Okay.
So, you know, my understanding is the money is going to be available to the state unemployment offices, who are obviously overwhelmed right now. And it's up to them to determine whether the eligibility is there.
Okay. Here's one. We have a small business that cannot open during the COVID shutdown. We are co-owners, 2 employees. We need this loan to cover rent, utilities, and business loan payments to the bank. Will we be able to get the loan forgiven if we don't have a payroll?
I believe so. I believe that if you're working through, you know, a lender already, and it's they work with the SBA, then these are all things when you apply, you should be able to get answers direct.
As I'm looking at a lot of these questions we have, they're really industry specific, and I don't know that Tim, you're the right person to ask them, but we will definitely find an expert and let you all know the answers to these questions, even if we have to have a separate webinar on the technical questions that are being asked here. It says, do you know when the banks are going to begin lending for SBA payroll protection? My bank doesn't know yet.
Yeah, so this week, guidance is supposed to come down at the federal level for how these monies are going to be, you know, these loans are going to be structured and how they're going to be applied for. So we're hoping that as soon as maybe even like Thursday or Friday this week, we should know.
Yeah.
But the guidance is being put together right now. It was supposed to take 10 days. They committed to try to get it done in a week. So if they get it done by Friday, I think that would be fantastic. Start allowing the money to go out, starting to allow the process to work.
So, and a lot of these questions are really about the implementation. So in other words, for the people who are listening, it's sort of, here's the rule, and now how are we going to take it to market? So
Right, yeah.
So I think, you know, over the next week or so, there will be a lot more information. And I know that just speaking to our partnership members that are expert, we've got some HR companies, accountants, and law firms that are willing to work with us to help provide technical assistance on these questions once the guidance comes out. So for those of you that are listening, even if it's industry specific, we may be able to do something, for example, for restaurants or something to help you interpret this as we move forward. And I don't know, again, so I'll just ask this question here. It says, can you speak to eligibility for the employee retention credit? You mentioned 50% loss, but what about a partial complete shutdown? That would come out in the guidance, right?
Right. That absolutely would, yes.
Okay. So as I'm looking here, all right, regarding nonprofits who are self-funded, do you have any guidance around not-for-profits or how this is going to work?
Would that be 501c6? I believe nonprofits are treated similarly under the Paycheck Protection Program.
Yeah. There was one follow-up question to a question I asked earlier, just because some folks are still confused. So can you apply for both the $10,000 and the payment protection loan, or do you have to choose between the two?
The Paycheck Protection Program is part of the economic injury disaster loans, okay? I believe you can do that, but you cannot get the employee retention credit or defer payroll taxes if you take that loan.
I got it. So one of our chamber partners is asking a question, if the U.S. Chamber is fighting for 501c6 chambers to get the loans to keep employees that would be forgiven. I know.
Absolutely. And that was something that was being negotiated at the highest levels in this last legislative push. And we are still working to try to get something done for 501c6s.
Great. Keep working.
Absolutely.
As I'm looking at all of these questions that we have in the hopper here, they really look like they are really about implementation. So
right.
we don't have those answers right now. But I would just say if there are any questions at all about anything that Tim has presented right now, I would just put them in there. But if they're specific about what they need to do, we will get back to you. So there's a couple questions that have just come in. And this is a great question. What critical areas do you think the CARE Act may have missed that businesses will need to endure the downturn? Do you have any sense of, like, in terms of the construct of this legislation, is there something that they're going to have to go back and revisit, Tim?
You know what? I absolutely think so. I think that once the guidance comes out, once businesses start applying for loans, and then we start seeing possibly some businesses, some industries that are missed in this latest round of legislation, I believe that the next round will have to address that. And members are talking about, fourth, fifth, sixth potential pieces of legislation to try to, not only just prop up our economy, but make sure that businesses that were viable before this happened are going to exist after. Everyone is just anxious to get back to work here. And, until things are safe to do so, we need to make sure that all the tools are there to ensure that businesses don't go under, don't lose employees. So I think that you're going to see more in the next round. And, I think that the Congress is tentatively talking about returning the last week in April, probably more likely the first week in May. And we can potentially see legislation then as well.
So a question here, it says, just to be clear, our first step, I'm assuming we mean first step after the guidance come out, should be to contact whatever SBA member bank that the folks are working with? Absolutely.
Use the SBA link, but if you already have a relationship with a bank, I've been told that they're including more and more banks to try to make it easier for people to get access to capital. Okay, but if you already have a relationship, you should be good to go because they'll have all your information and be able to process things quickly.
Yeah, from my understanding here locally, I know that M&T does a big number of these loans, so that
sure.
Place to start. But again, they're not going to have the answers either. The kinds of questions that people are asking, it won't be until the federal government really, they pass laws and then they give guidance.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we want you to do, and then the guidance is this is how you do it. So
to implement, yes.
Right, exactly. So one note here, question that says, I have not read that the disaster relief and the payroll protection are mutually exclusive. Where do you find the information about them being mutually exclusive? Is that?
It's in the legislation. It's in the law.
So to Timothy, Carlo, who asked that question, I would suggest go on to the U.S. Chamber website. They do have some really good handouts for small business that you might find helpful. That they do a good job of sort of distilling down the basics for business. So that would be a great place also to look. Great.
And it is, as businesses and associations and members begin to start to go through this process, I'm hoping at the end of this week or sooner, any sort of feedback and stories of what does work, what doesn't work. I mean, these are all things we can take back to Capitol Hill and make sure they get addressed.
And people are asking a lot of sort of technical questions too, like should the standard FMLA form be used for employees to file for leave, or is there a new form? That sort of stuff we will do our best to get. If the answers exist, we will get those answers onto our website and make sure that, but your questions are going to help inform what kind of information you need, and we'll get to work on getting that for all of you. So. Yes. Any other last remaining questions here? Give everybody one last chance. Okay. All right, folks. So what we're going to do is this recording will be available. The deck will be available. Anybody who is registered will receive those in a follow-up confirmation email. The questions you've asked, we will go ahead and make sure that we are getting whatever technical assistance you're asking for as soon as we can find out the answers and be in contact. So Tim, thank you so much. I just, for everyone who's listening, we were lucky to get Tim. We're the first chamber that he's doing this webinar with, and we really appreciate you being available so quickly to our membership and to all the local businesses that are participating today. So,
I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll probably be talking again. So we appreciate your help.
Yes.
Take care, everybody. We're all in this together and we're going to get through it.
Yes.
Take care. Bye-bye.